Hi, this is Tisch Aitken, and it is Tuesday, May 9th, 2023, and this is your astrological update. Today, the Sun met up with Uranus in the sign of Taurus at 18 degrees of the fixed Earth sign of Taurus, and this is just a few days after the lunar eclipse that occurred on May 5th at 14 degrees and 58 minutes of Scorpio. And that lunar eclipse was just 2 minutes off from the world axis, meaning that it impacts every one of us, it can bring big events, and it impacts people on the world stage. To give an example, a very famous Scorpio became king of his country. Whatever one thinks of royalty in these days, Prince Charles has been a prince most of his life, all of his life, and is a Scorpio, and this big fated event at the world point, and his life and destiny changed. And for the rest of us, we all comprise the world, whether or not we're on the world stage. And Mercury, the planet of communication and information, recently retrograded on April 21st at the world axis. Anything at 15 degrees of the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, impacts every one of us, also can bring big world events. The same is true of 0 and 22 degrees of the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. Right now we want to pay attention, and 7 degrees, by the way, of the mutable signs, and they are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. And you can rewind and listen to that again. 0 and 22 cardinal, 15 fixed, and 7 of the mutable signs. So recently we had a total lunar eclipse on November 8th at 16 degrees of Taurus, just a minute off from the world point. Lots of chaos. Uranus was transiting on and off at the world point last year, and the late winter of this year, when we had the explosion in Ohio and many other things going on, Uranus was at the world point at 15 degrees of Taurus. Mercury, the planet of communication and information, retrograded on April 21st at 15 degrees and 38 minutes of Taurus. A big retrograde for all of us during eclipse season. And this is a time where you really want to dig in deep to examine all of the stories and messages that are coming up in your lives. And realistically, very fated events do occur during eclipses. We have a new moon and a full moon every month. But to have an eclipse, the nodes of the moon have to be within 18 degrees of the sun. To have a total lunar eclipse or total solar eclipse, the nodes have to be within 8 degrees of the sun. Therefore, there's much more of a fated and karmic element. A lot of times something has been brewing and, finally reaches a boiling point and explodes, and that can happen. But sometimes eclipses can be, in my opinion, very Uranian in nature. And with a Uranus transit, you can expect the unexpected. Whatever you think it is, it often is something else. While eclipses, wherever it is falling in your chart, that's where a lot of activity is. It's a sense of pressure. It can be raised anxiety. It can, people have trouble sleeping sometimes. It can be very busy, a lot happening in a very short period of time. But eclipses also can bring changes in an instant that change your life forever, something that you weren't anticipating. Eclipses make us see things in a way that we never have, and they bring things to light, and we can get very important news, particularly when Mercury retrogrades at the world point, particularly when Uranus is very strong in these eclipses. Uranus was conjunct the Sun in the first, or maybe it was conjunct Mercury in the first eclipse. I'm talking about the eclipse when it was the solar eclipse on April 20th at the final degree of Aries at 29 degrees and 50 minutes of Aries. but that was squaring Pluto, the cosmic compost, because Pluto is going back and forth from the very first degree of Aquarius, where it reached on March 23rd of this year. It just dipped its toes into outer space, but it's also going back to the late degrees of Capricorn starting on June 12th. And this solar eclipse squared Pluto, eliminating things that are keeping us from transcending and evolving. The nodes of fate are squaring Pluto, okay? Mars squares Eris, the goddess of discord, on Thursday, May 11th. That can be very combative energy, but at the same time, Venus in Cancer makes a very helpful aspect to the North Node of Karma. They form what's known as a sextile. That's an aspect of opportunity. Right now, today, on the 9th of May, after myself, the Sun and Uranus met up at 3:56 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That can be turbulent, but that can also be exciting. That could be a call out of the blue where you get a new assignment or a new opportunity or something exciting happens. It can also be very frenzied, chaotic energy too. It can raise your anxiety tremendously where you have trouble sleeping. You know, this is a time to meditate, burn sage, burn Palo Santo, take nature walks. Hopefully it's nice where you are and you can get good nature walks, you know, plants and all of that, you know. But the other thing too is that Venus will be out of bounds. It's been out of bounds since April 17th, and it rules all of these points in Taurus. It rules the North Node of Karma in Taurus, where it's transiting through midsummer. And what was I going to say? Venus will be out of bounds through June 1st, which means it exceeds the sun's path by declination and does not play by the rules. Mars was out of bounds from October 22nd through May 5th, which was the second eclipse that we just had last Friday. And we can see the Mars energy pretty powerfully in all the examples that have been happening, you know, this year. And just people who are just it feels very amped up and fired up, and understandably, because it's been a difficult time for a very long time. And Jupiter, the grand benefic, the planet that expands anything it comes into contact with, good or bad, it's been transiting in Aries. It expands the ego, it expands the opportunities to open new doors and to take charge, but can also expand the anger. With Mars out of bounds, which it was for several months, Mars is the warrior of the zodiac, and it is the ruler of Aries, and so that expanded the fiery energy. And so hopefully now that, you know, gets brought down a little bit, mollified, with Mars now within its limits, and Jupiter is at the final degrees of Aries. And it's going to change signs on May 16th at 1:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's going to transit in the sign of Taurus until May of next year. And this is a big deal because the last few years we've had Jupiter transit in a sign for a few months. That began in 2020. It transited in Aquarius, then it briefly entered the early 2 degrees of Pisces, then it dipped back into Aquarius, and then the following year it was in Pisces, and then it dipped into Aries. And so, you know, it's been doing that for a little while, but now we have Jupiter. We have Jupiter in Pisces. No, Pisces. We have Jupiter in Taurus until next spring, and that is, I think, very positive because Venus is the other benefic of the zodiac. It's the planet of love and value and creativity. It rules the sign of Taurus, which is the sign of resources and skills and talents and what you want to grow and nourish. And this is about having patience to bring value to something of beauty. And late April of 24, Jupiter will meet up with Uranus at the later degrees of Taurus. And that'll be like about 21 degrees, 22 degrees of Taurus before Jupiter leaves Taurus. And so that will be very exciting and bring a lot of opportunity and expansion. But Jupiter is in the sign of Taurus the rest of the year, starting May 16th at 1:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Jupiter will retrograde at the world axis at 15 degrees and 34 minutes of Taurus on September 4th. This also speaks back to Mercury retrograde on April 21st at 15 degrees and 38 minutes of Taurus. And it also speaks to what you're trying to work with now. Hopefully you can expand it and bring it to another level. It speaks to the lunar eclipse of November 8th. That was at 16 degrees of Taurus. It speaks to Uranus, which was transiting at 15, degrees of Taurus earlier this year at the late winter, and on and off in 22. And, a lot is happening at the world point. And Saturn retrogrades on June 17th at 7 degrees of Pisces, which is also the world axis. Anything at 7 degrees of the mutable signs. And the mutable signs are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. The fixed signs, where we're seeing a lot of these points at 15 degrees, they are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. If you have any planets or angles close to 15 degrees of the fixed signs, you are getting hit by the lunar eclipse that just passed. You're getting hit by Mercury retrograde, which just happened. Mercury will clear its shadow on May 31st when it exceeds 15 degrees and 38 minutes of Taurus. And Venus will no longer be out of bounds as of June 1st. And it will also be the day that Jupiter meets up with the North Node of Karma at 3 degrees of Taurus. And one other thing, Mercury stations direct on May 14th at 11:17 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at 5 degrees and 50 minutes of Taurus. There will be a lunar eclipse on October 28th that will be at 5 degrees of Taurus. So more information with what you've been working with now. I think more revisions of what's been occurring, because Mercury now is stationing and it finally clears its shadow on my mom's birthday on May 31st. Good luck. Let go and let's get moving. Jupiter's about to change signs, so lots of changes for all. And good night.